The forest of Carvajal was quieter than usual that autumn evening. Birds had hushed their songs, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath as Erendor walked the narrow path home. He was just a farm boy, his life filled with ordinary chores, ploughing fields, carrying water, mending fences. Yet tonight, something felt different. His gaze kept drifting toward the shadows where the great mountains touched the sky. Half buried near the roots of an old oak, he noticed a strange object. At first, he thought it was just a stone polished by the river. But when he brushed away the dirt, the surface glowed faintly. It shimmered deep blue, like the reflection of stars trapped in crystal. His heart pounded. Carefully, he lifted it, and warmth spread through his fingers. The stone was heavier than it looked, humming faintly as though it had a heartbeat of its own. For weeks, Erendor kept it hidden under the straw in the barn. At night, he would take it out, tracing its smooth surface under the light of the moon. The villagers dismissed it as just a curiosity when he mentioned it. A boy's imagination, they said. But Erendor felt drawn to it, as though some invisible thread bound him to its mysterious glow. Then, one night beneath a harvest moon, the impossible happened. The stone cracked with a thunderous sound, glowing brighter until it split apart. From the fragments emerged a creature unlike anything Erendor had ever seen. A small dragon, scales glittering sapphire blue, wings folded tight against her fragile body. Her eyes, vast and intelligent, met his, and in that instant, a flood of warmth and thought surged through him. He gasped, stumbling backward, but the dragon stepped forward on uncertain legs. She touched his hand gently with her scaled head. A spark flared, not just in his skin, but in his very soul. He felt her presence in his mind, not in words at first, but in feelings, curiosity, trust, hunger, and above all, connection. Then, like a whisper in his thoughts, a name formed. Saphira. Days turned into weeks. Erendor fed her, cared for her, and watched as she grew at an astonishing pace. Within months, Saphira had transformed from a fragile hatchling into a magnificent creature, her wings stretching wide enough to cast shadows over the fields. When she flew, the earth trembled beneath her powerful wing beats, and when she roared, the skies themselves seemed to listen. The villagers grew uneasy. They whispered legends of old, of dragon riders who once defended the land, and of the great wars that had nearly destroyed both humans and dragons. Some looked upon Saphira with fear, others with reverence. Erendor, caught between awe and doubt, often wondered why fate had chosen him. One night, as they sat together beneath a sea of stars, Erendor spoke aloud, his voice shaking. "Why me, Saphira? I'm just a boy. I don't know how to be a warrior. I don't know how to lead." Her eyes glowed in the moonlight, and her deep, resonant voice filled his mind for the first time, clear and steady. "Because you are more than you believe. Where you walk, I fly. Where you fall, I rise. We are one, Erendor, and together we will shape the world." Erendor swallowed hard, realizing the truth. His life was no longer his own. Bound to Saphira, he carried a destiny older than kingdoms and heavier than steel. The bond was forged, and soon that bond would be tested. The days of peace in Carvajal were short-lived. News traveled fast across the valleys. An empire's army was on the march. They burned villages, enslaved people, and hunted down any trace of magic or dragonkind. At first, Erendor prayed their small farming village would be spared. But fate is not so merciful. One evening, a scout spotted Saphira soaring above the fields. Word must have reached the empire, for within days, riders reported soldiers approaching. Banners of crimson, steel glinting in the sun, their numbers vast. Fear rippled through the village like a cold wind. Families packed their belongings. Whispers rose. "They will come for the dragon. They will come for us all." Erendor stood on the hillside with Saphira, watching smoke rise from distant farms already destroyed. He clenched his fists. "We can run," he said bitterly. Hide in the mountains, far from their reach." Saphira turned her sapphire eyes toward him, her voice echoing steady in his mind. "Run, and they will still follow. Hide, and others will suffer in your place. You were chosen not for flight, but for courage." The choice gnawed at him, but before he could answer, the empire came. At dawn, the thunder of drums rolled across the valley. Soldiers marched into Carvajal, torches raised, blades gleaming. The first homes were set aflame, screams breaking the silence of morning. Erendor leapt onto Saphira's back, his bow clenched tight. With a single powerful sweep of her wings, they shot into the sky. Her roar tore through the air like lightning, halting soldiers mid-stride. Arrows flew upward, a black storm of death, but they shattered harmlessly against her diamond-hard scales. Saphira dove, unleashing a torrent of sapphire fire. The blaze consumed siege wagons and sent armored men scattering like ants. Erendor fired arrow after arrow, his aim true, striking down captains and archers. For every soldier that fell, 10 more rushed forward, but none could match the fury of dragon and rider. Yet, the battle was not without cost. Flames spread through Carvajal, consuming barns and homes. Villagers screamed not only in fear of the empire, but of Saphira herself. Some fell to their knees in awe, while others shouted curses. "She will bring ruin upon us all. She is the reason they came." Erendor's heart ached as he heard them. He had fought to protect them, but now he saw fear in their eyes when they looked upon Saphira. The line between savior and destroyer blurred. When the last soldier fled into the forest, the village lay broken, fields blackened, houses smoking ruins. Erendor slid from Saphira's back, his chest heaving. He looked around at the frightened faces of his people, and shame washed over him. "Maybe they're right," he whispered. "Maybe you are a curse." Saphira lowered her great head until her golden eyes met his. Her voice, deep and calm, filled him again. "No, Erendor. A curse brings only death. But where I walk beside you, there is still hope. The path of a rider is not easy, but it is ours." That night, as the embers of Carvajal smoldered, Erendor made his choice. He would not run. He would not hide. Together with Saphira, he would rise against the empire, not as fugitives, but as a spark of rebellion. The flames of war had been lit, and their journey into destiny had truly begun. The village of Carvajal no longer felt like home. Though the people were alive, their eyes carried fear whenever they glanced at Saphira's great wings. Whispers followed Erendor wherever he walked. The empire would come again, stronger than before, and neither the villagers nor he was ready. It was then that an old traveler, half-blind and hunched with age, approached him by the well. "If you seek strength, boy," the man rasped, "seek the seer of the spine. She alone knows the paths that bind dragon and rider to destiny." The words sank deep into Erendor's heart. He told Saphira that night, and she spread her wings. "Then we go," she said, "for knowledge is the sharpest blade against fear." Their journey into the spine, the vast ancient forest, tested them from the first step. Towering trees, older than kingdoms, blocked out the sun. The air was thick, heavy with silence, as if the forest itself listened to intruders. Wolves howled from the shadows, eyes glinting red at night, and strange shapes slithered just beyond the firelight. Erendor's courage wavered with each passing day. He remembered the flames of Carvajal, the fear in his people's eyes, and the crushing weight of expectation. Sometimes he wondered if he had the strength at all. But every time despair threatened to drown him, Saphira's voice was there, steady as stone. "You are not alone. My wings are your wings, my fire, your fire." At last, they found her. The seer's hut stood crooked between gnarled roots, its roof sagging under moss. Smoke drifted lazily from the chimney. The woman who emerged was cloaked in rags, her eyes silver and glowing faintly in the dim light. She was neither young nor truly old, but her presence filled the clearing like an unseen weight. "You seek answers," she said without greeting, "but answers have prices." She led them inside, where the air shimmered with strange energy. Then, with a wave of her hand, the world around them shifted. Erendor gasped. The hut melted into shadows, and suddenly he stood in a nightmare. Before him, Carvajal burned again, but this time the screams were louder, the destruction worse. He saw his mother enslaved, his friends dragged in chains, and then, the worst vision of all, Saphira, broken, her wings torn, her eyes dull with death. Erendor fell to his knees, clutching his head. "No, no, this isn't real," he cried. The illusion tightened, feeding on his fear. He smelled ash, heard the dying cries of children, felt the crushing hopelessness. His body trembled. He wanted to give up. But through the storm of despair, Saphira's roar echoed, not from the vision, but from within him. "Stand, rider." Fear is an illusion, but our bond is truth. Her voice snapped through the shadows like lightning. Erendor gritted his teeth, forcing himself to rise. He clutched at the fire inside him, the bond he shared with her, and the vision cracked, shattering like glass. They were back in the hut. The seer watched silently, a small smile tugging at her lips. "You faced your greatest fear and did not break," she said. "Good. For only those who master fear may master destiny." Then her voice deepened, becoming almost chant-like. "When the Empire's shadow covers the sun, I say,